Hi, this is Paul DeLong, drummer, educator, author, man about town, after dinner speaker, and welcome to Talking Blues.
I get the feeling you're a Gretsch drummer.
Yes.
What makes you dedicated to Gretsch?
It was the smell of the inside of the drums. That's what did it.
Really?
No, that's partly true. No, I always loved the look and the sound of those drums. And you see, my dad took me to George's Spaghetti House when I was 12. First time I ever seen a live drummer. And Terry Clark was playing drums, and he had a little black set of Gretsch. And I was just sitting there with my mouth hanging open, listening to him play, just looking at him. Look at the muffler knobs, those big round knobs. I just like the way they looked and everything. Then, 1971, I got my first Gretsch set, and when the first time I took the head off, the smell inside was intoxicating, and I don't know what it was. The lacquer they used, it was sweet. It smelled really good. So I had this fixation about Gretsch drums, and you know, when I was getting into jazz with my teacher Pete Megadini. You know, back then, Elvin, Tony, Max Roach, Art Blakey, Philly Joe Jones, everybody played Gretsch drums, everybody. And so there was that. And I mean, I was sort of looked at Ludwig and Rogers and stuff, but the Gretsch was it. That was, love affair started back then, you know.
So this is probably a silly question, but if you sat behind a set of Ludwigs or any other brand, would there be a difference?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And what is that? Is it the sound? Is it the feel? What would be the difference?
The sound and the attack and the how long the notes last, and I can tell instantly. And depending on the sound you're looking for, you know, Gretsch. I know a lot of people don't like that. So I like floor toms that rumble. Like this Lenny White had this rumbling. I love that, you know. And other people went, "Oh, we can't have that." So then maybe they'd lean more towards Ludwig or something that had a warmer, more defined sound, or more less resonance maybe. But like Ginger Baker's tom-tom sound, totally different than a Gretsch sound. And then Keith Moon's Premier drums, that was an incredible sound, you know, like on that first Who album. Totally different sound, you know, so.
But how much of that is the player and how much of that is the instrument?
Well, a lot is the player, because you do carry your sound with you, you know, and I play a lot of backline kits in the U.S. and stuff, and I can make any set of drums sound like a Paul DeLong set of drums just by tuning the way I tune or whatever, you know. But it's also shell material, whether they're birch or maple or whatever, and it's the thickness of the shell. It's whether it's a 3-ply or 6-ply. It's the bearing edge, like whether it's rounded or whether it's sharp. Like Gretsch has sort of sharp bearing edges. Ludwig is sort of rounded, you know. So it's all that. It's all a lot of, and the weight of the rims. Gretsch has die-cast rims, a lot more weight to it, gives it a certain sound. And the heads you put on, like there's a lot of variables for sure.
Okay, so tell me, after that experience of seeing that drummer at George's Spaghetti House, did you know immediately that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I had, the bug had hit me already. Like my dad used to play me. He had all these 78s. You know what 78s are?
Yes.
He had a pile of them, and of Count Basie and Artie Shaw and all these great records. But the one he had was Chick Webb and his orchestra doing this instrumental tune called Liza, and it started with a drum solo, and that just like, it was just like so heavy. The flip side of that record was Chick Webb with Ella Fitzgerald singing "A Tisket a Tasket," which was that was a hit for her, and everybody discovered Ella Fitzgerald. But the Liza was what I was interested in, and that happened simultaneously with me seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and seeing Ringo, and so it was like this rock and jazz world where they were always side by side in my life. So, but yeah, so I had already been bitten with the bug. But seeing a drummer live, that's a whole other experience. I remember like just what it was, the cymbals, everything was just like, oh my God, it was so cool, to see that.
The two genres that you loved or fell in love with, rock and jazz, and you still continue to do both.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as a different person as a jazz drummer than you are as a rock drummer, or it's just you're just a drummer? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're quite different.
Yeah, I think it's all the same person, and I think to get pigeonholed, and I always have been pigeonholed. The rock guys think I'm too jazzy, and the jazz guys think I'm too rocky. In this city, Toronto's bad for pigeonholing, whereas in the U.S., drummers can do a death metal session in the day and go play a jazz club at night. Nobody bats an eye. Same thing in New York. But here, it's funny. You get definitely pigeonholed. But I think, I approach things differently. But basically, it's the same person. It's not like I put on a beret and now I'm a jazz musician or something, or I put on a headband and now I'm a rock musician. It's nothing like that. It's just yeah. But I think one thing influences the other for sure.
And growing up, when you decided that you wanted to pursue playing music, did you do more of one than the other?
Yes. I was playing mainly rock music, but before I got the gig with Dominic Triano, I was living in a house with a bunch of guys, and all we were doing was playing jazz all day. And I was really into that. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll be a jazz musician. But then Triano, that thing came along, and there was no way I was going to turn that down or anything. And plus, Triano's music was not straight ahead rock. It had a lot of jazz influence and fusion influence in it, so it was perfect for me. I loved it. It was great.
So I wonder, as you're growing up playing both jazz and rock, if you had a vision of what one or the other actually was, what would have meant to you to be a jazz musician or to be a rock musician?
That's a good one. Yeah, I don't know.
Or is it just, I want to play the music I want to play?
Yeah, I think more of that, and I could blow in the wind a little bit with go from one side to the other quite easily when I think about it. Because I did love to rock out, and I love playing arenas and smacking the crap out of the drums. But at the same time, I love playing a four-piece kit and just getting some swing going and just, getting into that mindset. So, yeah, I always love both,
And I presume that being in, and I don't know if this is the right term, but progressive rock,
yeah,
and maybe jazz fusion type bands. You kind of played with those type of bands.
Yeah, way before Triano, I played in a band called Truck and then a band called Devotion. The Devotion was a hardcore prog band, and we played all Yes and Genesis and original music in that style. And I ate that up. I just loved it. I always loved playing in odd time signatures, and I could remember all that stuff really easily, like the changes in the tune and everything. So yeah, I really and then that was a natural progression to the fusion stuff. Once I heard Mahavishnu and Return to Forever and all that, that was a natural progression. So
how do you define progressive rock? Would it be part jazz, part rock?
Yes. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it would be a sort of jazz or influence on rock music, with the odd time signatures and the complicated arrangements and the lengthy tunes and all that, and but when you think about it though, the strange lyrics and all that stuff, that has nothing to do with jazz, really.
That's true.
It's just, it was its own thing, and I don't know, coming from England, and so it's interesting actually how that developed and why. I never thought too much about it, but you think about the first King Crimson album or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, where that came from, But a lot of it's more classical. Yeah, it's more classical than jazz. That's what it is. I should have said that 10 minutes ago. It's a classical influence,
right?
And medieval, like Gentle Giant. It's a medieval
influence.
It's not jazz. So, but although you think about 21st Century Schizoid Man, when it goes into the solo section, that's a serious jazz blow there. So there is that, but mainly classical, like Keith Emerson, prime example, like serious classical chops.
Yeah, it amazes me as I get older how much classical music they played that I didn't know was classical music.
Oh, yes.
And oftentimes I hear people say, well, I heard that, I didn't know it was blues.
Yeah.
So it's, what is the genre?
Yeah.
You mentioned Dominic Triano.
Yeah.
He's somebody I admire a great deal. He seemed to have a great deal of belief in you.
Yeah.
At a young age. Tell me about that relationship and tell me about that belief that he had in you.
Well, the first time I met him, he had come back to town, and he'd been playing with the Guess Who, but he wanted to do his own thing, and he came back to town and he was looking for musicians. So I was playing a house gig at the Stage 212, backing up strippers. He came down and sat in with the band, and while the girl's taking her clothes off, and he kept turning around, and he seemed to like what I was doing, and I don't know why. It was weird, but
how old were you?
I was 22 or 23, I guess. But then he tried a bunch of people, and he settled on the band he had, which was Jim Norman on drums, Keith Jones on bass, and Dave Tyson and Fred Mandel, who's my oldest childhood friend, by the way. So he settled on that, and I didn't think too much more, and I was out playing with other bands. I was playing with Stacey Hayden, this guy, guitar player, played with David Bowie from Toronto. So I was playing with him, and every once in a while, sort of check in and try. So I think Jim Norman and Keith left, or I don't know what happened. But anyway, Donnie went to New York to record Burning at the Stake, and he used Steve Ferrone and Neil Jason as a rhythm section, which, oh my God, you couldn't get any better than that. That record smoked. Then he came back. He was looking for a drummer. He tried a couple of different guys. Didn't really work out. I auditioned again twice, I think, and I was so nervous at the auditions. It didn't work out. I just blew it. It was terrible. I felt awful. And then one day he showed up at my door. I opened the door. There he was. First of all, he didn't have a hat on. It's the first time I had ever seen his bald head. So I was like, oh my God. And so he opens the door and he goes, listen, DeShort, you got the gig whether you like it or not. And it was like, oh my God, okay. So that was the fall of 77. So I was 24, soon to be 25. And so I was plunged into this thing, and it was trial by fire. But I had good nights and I had bad nights. My playing at that point was not consistent. I might be brilliant one night and terrible the next night. And but he, through it all, he's still very supportive. Like I remember we did one of the first things I ever did with him was a live radio show at Thunder Sound in Toronto on Davenport there, and live radio. Oh my God, talk about dying, and they recorded. And we were listening to it in the control room afterwards, and we were playing this tune, Lonely Girl. It's just a George Benson-like thing. And he said to me, DeShort, there's somewhere out there'll be a guy listening to your drumming and thinking how good you are, And I just thought, man, that's like so beautiful, Plus, okay, so then we did our first gig. Before that, we did our first gig at the El Macombo, after only rehearsing for a week or something. And it was pretty good, but it was a bit rough, but it was pretty good. But he would turn around every few tunes and he'd tap his guitar pick on my head and go, yeah, DeShort, yeah, or, something like that. He's very supportive. So, yeah, so then, the next thing I know, we're in the studio doing the Jokes on Me, and which was a new experience for me. I never recorded in a major studio for a major label, and it was a lot of pressure for a young guy.
Can I ask you what your confidence level was? I mean, the fact that he would seek you out, and even though you've actually failed a couple of auditions, but he still had belief in you.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
It totally is. he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. But as I listen back to those records now, I think it's pretty good, And I really grew into that gig. So by the second album, and then we had toured in the U.S. and I was getting strong, and it was really good. And but he endured my bad nights, and
And would we talk about it or not?
yes, we would talk about. He would say to me, he could sense, like if we start playing and then I make a mistake or something goes wrong, then he could feel my whole being drop, and he'd say, you can't let that happen. He said the first 2 minutes on stage is so important. You got to come out ready to, kick ass, breathe fire, not worry about anything. You're 100% committed and you're going for it. And you establish that in the first 2 minutes, you're fine. You'll be fine. But if you let anything bother you and you go, down, then that's no good. So we would talk about, it's all mindset, and I read many books like The Inner Game of Music and Effortless Mastery. There's all kinds of books about the inner game, and it's all there. It's not anything to do with your technical, like your body knows what to play. It's your mind fighting, like saying, oh my God, you messed that up. Oh, look who just walked in. Oh shit. And all this shit, the dialogue that goes into your brain that destroys your performance. So he was instrumental in getting me to think about that stuff, and I've thought a lot about that stuff over the years, and it took me many years to get on top of that, and because I always had I had a bit of stage fright and lack of confidence, and just get really down on myself, like really bad. So it took me a lot of years to get over that, and I finally have at the ripe old age of 71. But
when did you know you wanted to do this as a profession? Or was there ever a doubt?
It wasn't what you think, like it was, not that I know what you think, but it wasn't like, okay, I got this burning need, I'm going to play music for, I actually wanted to be a recording engineer. Okay. And so I went to see my guidance counselor in grade 11 or 12 or whatever, 12, I guess, because I did grade 13 because we had grade 13 back then. But I went to see my guidance counselor. He didn't know what a recording engineer was. He was absolutely no help. And at the time, all they had, Ryerson offered a radio and television arts course. So I was thinking about that. But then when I got out of school, right away, I got a gig with this Japanese band called the Flower Traveling Band. That's a long story, but anyway.
But this is one of your first gigs, right?
Yeah, and so I was fresh out of high school. I got a gig with them, and they were recording that. Their drummer they came over here. Lighthouse brought them over here. Their drummer got TB, and they needed a drummer. I auditioned. I got the gig, and I moved out of my parents' place. And I thought, this is it. I've hit the big time. I'm just out of high school, and I've hit the big time already. They paid me $60 a week, but that was the big time. So I started doing that. I just started playing, and I kind of forgot about the recording engineer bit, and then I just never stopped playing, and I never stopped being in bands, and just, that sort. I kind of just slid into it, and then, but obviously I had a passion for it, or else I would have. Like, I had lots of friends who decided this isn't for me, and who were playing and stuff, but they just went nah, and they ended up with straight jobs and right. Made a lot more money than me, but as I think when I started around that time, it was about 19, I started studying with Pete Megadini and really getting into drums, like seriously, technically, and like all the stuff that I hadn't done yet. I thought I was pretty good, but I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything.
You didn't know shit because you basically learned on your own.
Yes. Yeah, I had one teacher who taught me to read and stuff, and he was great, but I hadn't really got deep into it, and Pete Megadini got me deep into a lot of stuff all at once, and I really was working my ass off, practicing every day, and so that's when the passion grew until I went, there's no question, this is what I'm doing with my life, So
when you studied with him, was it just a matter of becoming a better musician, or did you think, like, would there be any other reason why you would have pursued being taught by him? Like, did you think maybe by doing this, I will one day play in an orchestra or one day play in theater or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more about the pursuit of knowledge than aspiration to. Although I thought, well, if I get really good, I guess I'll do some of those things. But it was more just about because my dad asked me, why do you studying so hard? And I said, I just want to be really good at one thing, just really. Because I'm all or one for all for one. Like, I mean, I when I get into something, that's it. There's nothing else,
Right.
And so drums was always like that for me. And once after that, man, I had Dave King could tell you I had a binder this thick called the DeLong Bible, and it was just all stuff. I started transcribing. After I learned to read and got into it, I started transcribing every fusion lick and every jazz lick and everything under the sun every day. Like, wow. I had a $75 Panasonic cassette player that had a pitch control so you could slow things down, and I would just transcribe. I still have the book, just a million ideas, and which is how in the end I ended up writing a couple of books, because like I had all these ideas in my head. But yeah, I became a real student of the drums, and still am. I still do the same thing on my computer now instead of writing it. But I'm still always looking for new. Not as much as I used to, but I get excited by a new idea, and I run with that idea, and all of a sudden I got 4 pages of stuff, and I still love that process.
Like, what would be an example of something? Like, I don't know if it works this way, but have you heard something recently and you thought, my God, what is that? And then I'm gonna attempt to transcribe that. Is that the way it would work?
Yeah, that can be like I have a drum page on Facebook, and there was an idea that was inspired by Bill Stewart, but it wasn't anything he ever played. But it was inspired by him because of just the way it lands, like a certain thing that he does. It's a thing he does, and I just came up with this idea that was a hybrid of an earlier idea, but adapted to the inspiration from Bill Stewart, and that turned into like a couple of pages of stuff. So that'll happen. Sometimes something just hits me out of the blue, but very often, it's something I've heard. But I can't think of anything offhand right now that was inspired by something I just heard. But
okay, well, let me ask you. I find the confidence thing really interesting. Mm-hmm. And so you audition for Dominic Triano, which is a pretty big deal. He's a great musician, even greater person, but you fail 2 auditions, which must just kill you, right? Because you're nervous and you think, well, how am I going to be a musician if I'm going to be nervous? I can't get over this. But what does that experience teach you? What does that experience do to you?
Well, at the time, it made me realize that I needed to get some things together.
But do you think that was anything to do with your playing, or just confidence?
No, some playing things, because I had a tendency to rush like crazy, like a hyperactive little gorilla. And so I tried to get my time under control, and just generally too busy. And I was coming out of prog rock and fusion, and so it was just too much all the time, and I hadn't spent a whole lot of time just like grooving along with so I started playing along with like Average White Band or Earth, Wind and Fire or something, just like straight pocket and just sit with it, so I started doing that, and I guess it was the bass player in Stacy's band noticed, like, okay, yeah, that sounded good now, because he was complaining, it's like, because I was just too much all the time, and so I realized I had to get some of these basic things I had neglected. I had to get together more,
I mean, I presume that it's something like guitar players who play way too many notes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can do it, why not? But there's something to be said about just being in the pocket.
Yeah. And everybody wants to play with a drummer who's in the pocket, who makes them feel good. And I was making them feel nervous, like I was like, being like, oh, stop.
But you must have been good that Dominic would seek you out.
Yes.
And you must have been good that other people, like Kim Mitchell, seeked you out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's snowball effect. Like when I was playing with Dominic, we opened for Max Webster, and Kim stood at the side of the stage and watched me and went, "Oh, that drummer's good." And then so he happened to phone me when he started a new band. So that's how that works. It's word of mouth spreads. Hey, DeLong's not so hyper anymore. You should check him out. You know.
When do you think you felt confident in what you do? Not overconfident, but just confident in your abilities and who you are.
I think, it's only been the last 10, 15 years, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Really. Yeah, because...
and I presume this is something that's gradual, and you just look around and go, oh, yeah, I feel pretty confident, as opposed to a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed there's a flip in my brain of before a gig thinking, I hope I don't screw up too bad, or, I probably screw up some things or something, to a flip to, I'm going to be great. I'm going to be good tonight. And right before you play the big fill, I visualized myself playing it right, instead of disasterizing that you're going to screw it up, which is the sure way you're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
So it was only, like I said, in the last 10 or 15 years that I was able to consistently feel confident and visualize myself doing a good job and coming off thinking, yeah, I did a good job. Now, I still screw up or whatever, but that doesn't get me down, though. And, I have these times when I think I could have played better, I played like crap or whatever. But it's not paralyzing, and I still play well. I still have a certain level that I play at, and that it doesn't get below that, So I feel strong.
Wow. I mean, that just seems crazy to me that it's only been the last 10 years.
But I'm a late bloomer. I'm not a normal human. I'm not. It's I mean, I might have given off the air that I was totally confident, I mean, I was when I was playing arenas with Kim and stuff, but it was more like when I started freelancing and doing sessions and doing all this different stuff. I would the doubt would creep in sometimes, because I was out of my comfort zone. So that's, I guess, yeah. And doing theater, like, that's baptism by fire. Like, that's the most pressure I've ever felt in my life. So right. You can't imagine, being down in a pit and knowing that whatever you play is going to affect whatever's going on up there. That's a lot of pressure. So I got used to that, though.
Right.
And that helped the confidence level.
Okay, so before we go there,
okay,
you're playing with Kim. You wind up joining Kim's band. He gets you in. You do the first EP and then some. You record a couple albums with him. I'm sure your confidence is pretty high. The band is doing really well. Are you enjoying the experience? Because, that's not jazz.
I was loving the experience, but I was not as enamored with patio lanterns as I was with Kids in Action, that's for sure. Right. When I first played with Kim, I would say, what do you want me to play? And he said, just be intense. That's his only instruction to me. We got to the point by the third album where I would play, and he'd say, that was a great take, but you're playing, the Americans don't, he was trying to get a hit, and he'd say, the Americans don't want to hear all those drum fills, you got to simplify it. So I was kind of...
And how do you feel about that when you hear
I feel angry about that. Okay. Yeah, no, because I don't buy that theory so much that it has to be totally simple. I get it. Like, rock should be simple and powerful, but there's always room. Like in Kim's music, there was always room for quirky little neat things, and he loved that initially, but then he didn't love it, and I still loved it. So it was, that was just a little rough. But I mean, the album that I didn't like is the one that won the Juno Award. So what do I know?
Obviously, your playing changed during that time.
Yes.
To probably a more simpler.
Yeah, but
restrained.
I mean, I can play as simple as you like, but I do like, it's funny because 3 weeks before I got canned from Kim said to me, Paul, I've always loved the way you interpret my music. He said that, like, I remember it very well. And he did. And we always had, like I said, even in the simple tunes, there was quirky little things that were really cool, that no other sort of rock bands had stuff like that, and we would, we in the U.S., we we played with a lot of bands, like opening, and I heard bands that had hits and stuff, and I would hear them doing a sound check, and it sounded bad. Like they didn't have a clue. They knew how to play their hits, but they did not know how to play together and react to each other, and it was astounding how bad they were sometimes. It's really weird.
Are you proud of the work? Like when I hear like All We Are,
Yeah.
and I just think, what an amazing drum.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm totally proud of that track, and if that's what I'm remembered for, then right on. That's great, because I think that's a legitimately great song and a good drum track.
Okay, so that life, because all of a sudden you're propelled into something bigger. Not that Kim was huge, but he did quite well.
Yeah.
You were touring all over the place.
Yeah.
What did you think about just that experience of starting a band, and here we are, and we're touring all over the place and opening up for all these different bands? Did you like that?
I loved it. I mean, in Canada, of course, we were headlining and selling out everywhere. But then in the U.S., the summer of '85, we had been driving around in a van opening for all these bands and stuff. But then our record, Go for Soda, started getting serious airplay. And it got into the Billboard chart. And then Kim was on Good Morning America, because Mothers Against Drunk Driving got on the bandwagon thinking it was a song about, but it wasn't. But then we got the Bryan Adams tour, opening for Bryan Adams for 6 weeks across the U.S. Now that was the best time of my life, bar none. Like that was the summer of '85. It was like heaven. It was great. And because we were going over every night, we had 45-minute set of action-packed music, and we were just killing it every night, and Brian was killing it every night. We were hanging with those guys, and it was just like and we had a tour bus instead of a van, and so that was a really great time, and I love thinking about that time. It was just it was perfect. It was just wonderful.
So this continues until, is it the fourth album, when the producer says, I'm not sure if... So Kim hired Paul DeVilliers to come in to do the next album, which was going to be called Rockland. And we had been playing the tunes on that album. We'd been playing it live and everything. And Paul DeVilliers said to Kim, is this a band? And like a self-contained band? And Kim went, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, if it isn't, if it's like U2 and the band is the band, you don't screw with it, that's self-contained. But if it isn't, he says, Paul's a jazz drummer. He's not a rock drummer. You haven't done a good rock album yet, and we can do one. But I got the drummer for you. And Kim went, okay. And so that's how easily it happened. It happened over a few months, but it was painful. It was bad. I can imagine. So I never know with the dynamics of a band.
Yeah.
I know it's Kim Mitchell's band.
Yeah.
But, I can see why you would be devastated.
Yeah.
So how do you react to that? Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
No, there's nothing you can do. And it was one of the toughest things I've ever gone through, actually. And it was embarrassing. It was made me angry. It was all kinds of emotions all at once. But you're right. There's nothing I could do. I could not play one correct note for Paul DeVilliers. Like we oh my God! I remember just being we went into the studio. It was like, okay, well, we'll try Paul out, and so we set up a bass drum, just the bass drum, and I spent 3 days hitting that bass drum. And while they put wood under it, they took it away. They put carpet, they put curtains, they took the curtains. Like just trying to get a bass drum sound. Then eventually added the snare. Like I can't function under those conditions. Right. I don't like it. But that was the way he worked. But so that all went down, and then it was funny because he said I wasn't a rock drummer. So I said to myself, okay, if I'm not a rock drummer, I'm not playing any more rock music. I was pissed off, and that's when all of a sudden David Blaemeyers came back to town from touring with Pat Metheny, and I don't know who hooked us up, but all of a sudden I'm in his band and playing this beautiful music that sounds like Pat Metheny, and we recorded and played gigs, and then this guy Carlos Lopez, guitar player, and Earl Seymour, sax, we had another band. We were touring jazz festivals. This was another fusion thing.
How much jazz were you playing during the Kim area?
None. No,
okay,
because Kim, when you're in that band, it's like you're in the band full time, and
Right,
there's nothing
okay.
else going on.
So, do you have your jazz chops? Are they still there?
Oh yes, practicing like a fiend, and every chance I got, and transcribing and working on stuff. Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, then what do you think about Kim? Can I ask you that?
Yeah, yeah. You know,
Like, because I can imagine, like, it just kind of like dropped like a hot potato. But I presume it was a band.
Yeah.
It was a relationship. It wasn't like
it was.
Yeah.
And we hung in with Kim, you know, all those years, the lean years, and we didn't make much money, and we never got record royalties, and so it was like one for all and all for Kim. You know, it was and you know, like, we're friends now, and it's all water under the bridge. And I actually played a gig or two with him a couple of years before COVID. I played 2 gigs with him, and I had a great time. We had a great.
Okay, so what was that like?
It was great. It was like
Like, he calls you and says, "Paul,
you
can
want
you
to come
come
out?"
back?"
He called me a number of times over the years.
Okay.
And and I said no, and he said, "You mad at me?" And I went, "No, I didn't say." But I was. But
I don't know why you wouldn't tell him that you would. Like, I just, you know,
I think-
I get the business,
yeah.
but there is a personal thing. There is this connection.
Well, yeah, we were really close friends.
Yeah.
I was best man at his wedding, and we hung all the time, and we were really close. So it was tough from a friendship point of view. But I know why, you know, that stuff goes down. I mean, Kim really wanted to hit the market in the U.S. and whatever it took to get up to the next level, but he didn't get up to the next level, even with the great drummer, you know. So, yeah. But anyway, but it was fun playing with him again and playing All We Are and all those tunes, and we had a laugh, and it was good, you know. So, and we go out for dinner and stuff, and it's all good now. But you know, it kind of messed me up for life, because it made me not believe anybody who complimented me, like, who said, "Oh, you're a great drummer," or this or that. And it's like, yeah, I've heard that before, and
Right.
I don't believe you. I don't believe anybody who tells me anything.
Okay, so when did that now change? I totally get that.
Yeah.
When did that change, and when did you? I'm curious about at what point you not forgave Kim, but when you all of a sudden you're comfortable with seeing him again and playing with him again.
Well, you know, we're talking many years, because that all went down in '87, and then I played with him again in 2019. So how many years that is, I don't know, but
Lots.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah.
So time heals everything, and yeah, I mean, it happens in big groups too, you know, where they all hate like the Rascals. They all hated each other, but they ended up doing their Broadway show, you know, a few years back, and it was great, you know, fantastic. So it's all fine. There was something else I thought of, though, I wanted to say, but I think, you know, like, the more successful I became at the stuff that happened after Kim, the less it bothered me about Kim, because I realized this is probably what I should have been doing, and what I should be doing is freelancing, doing all kinds of different gigs, doing sessions. I started doing drum clinics. I started teaching at Humber. It all happened all right after Kim, you know. So and it was great, and I was enjoying the variety. And
But did it happen because you seeked it out, or just they seeked you out?
I don't know. I think I was ready for something, but I think it just all fell into place. The universe was kind to me, and it just dropped into my lap, a lot of this stuff.
Well, I think perhaps your talent and your ability might have been part of the reason for that.
I guess, yeah, maybe. I don't know. But you know, I had some learning to do. I had to I remember. I was used to playing in arenas. I would count tunes in bashing quarter notes on the hi-hat. 1, 2, you know. And I did something like that in the beginning with Blameyers or one of the, and they went, "What are you doing?" You know. "Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm not in an arena. I could just count it in, you know." So I had to stop playing so loud and tone things down a bit, and get a different setup going and different tuning and all this stuff. But that was all good. That was all great, you know.
So two major things happened, I think, in my eyes. That one is the fact that you started doing theater work, which is a completely different discipline, completely different experience, I presume.
Yeah.
And it's a different approach to playing music, I would imagine. And then the other thing is session work, which is also quite different, maybe more similar to the theater work. But how did you get into both of those things?
Well, the theater thing didn't start until 95, I think, maybe, or 94. I don't know. Like Tommy, was playing in Toronto, and Mark Kelso was the drummer, and I had been sniffing around thinking that I would like to start subbing on getting my foot in the door with theater. And he was the guy I subbed for with on Tommy.
Sorry, what made you think that? How did that thought process happen?
That I'd like to get into that?
Yeah.
I needed money,
okay.
and lots of it. And because I had split up with my wife and stuff, there was stuff going down. And so I needed money. I knew that was good. But also, I liked the idea of it. It just appealed to me. And I thought I would be perfect for Tommy. But then when Kelso got the gig, I went, okay, well, maybe I can sub for him. So, and he sort of read me the riot act about, you only get one chance to do this, maybe two if you're lucky, but you got to nail it the very first time you come in. There's no rehearsal. You come in. And I worked really hard, and I came in and I nailed it. So then I did that show and went on the road with that. And then...
Sorry, nailing it means basically reading a chart and being right, like reading everything correctly and playing it correctly.
And getting
there's no improvisation. There's nothing.
No. And then following the conductor is the other thing too.
And how much experience did you have working with a conductor?
None, but I learned that fast too. And so I learned about the bottom.
But how do you learn, like if you've never done it, and I don't know if you had any other experience with the orchestra, but how do you do that? Come in cold, never have a rehearsal, and then nail it?
I tell you how. I developed this whole system where I took a video camera into the pit and videotaped the conductor doing the whole show, and you could hear the audio, and then I would at home set up everything exactly like it would be in the pit, and I put a TV up on some milk crates exactly where the conductor would be, and I turned the lights off, and I had the music, and for a month I played that show watching the conductor. I did it every day for a month, and then when I came in, it was normal to me. It felt normal, and I did that for every show, and people used to laugh at me. Oh, there's DeLong with his video camera again, but it worked.
But you could do that because there was a chance you would sub for them.
Yes. So after I did Tommy, then I did Joseph, again subbing in Toronto. Then I went on the road with that in Vancouver, and then Salt Lake City, and then I subbed in on Rent, and I went to Ottawa with that. Then I went 4 months in the U.S. with that, and then I subbed in on Lion King, and I ended up doing that. Like I did 450 Lion Kings. I did that a lot because Brian Barlow, he liked to sub out a lot, so I would do 2 or 3 shows a week, and then he had a bit of a heart thing, so I had a couple of months of doing it just myself, and so I got really used to that. And then I think I did Hairspray and Hair, and I went, I don't want to do this anymore.
But during that time, that's all you did?
Pretty well, because, if I was going on the road with some, like Rent, gone for 4 months, but, so that was tough. That was really tough. But, especially that show, because it was depressing, and you're right on stage for that show, so every night everybody's dying, and it's like, oh God.
Can you just explain that process of being in the pit, playing, and looking at your score and looking at the conductor? Is that an easy thing to do?
No. You have to, anytime that there's like a major retired or anything major going on conducting wise, you have to have the music at that spot memorized. You can't be looking at the music, so you got all your attention on the conductor, right? So I've seen guys come in and try and sub on shows, like guitar players and stuff on Lion King or whatever, crash and burn because they got their face buried in the music, and the conductor's desperately trying to slow them down but they're just not paying attention, and it's painful to watch, and because then the conductor goes like this, like daggers, like, oh man, it's bad. It's like I said, it's the most pressure, and I made my share of mistakes, like real bonehead moves, like hitting a gong right in the middle of a quiet spot because where not supposed to be, and just all kinds of little things like that. It happens all the time, like. But it's like, that's embarrassing, huh? When you have the whole pit laughing at you, it's not good. And even one time I did something in Joseph, I think that was the thing. I made a big crash that wasn't so, and even the conductor's laughing, and on stage they're laughing. It's like they told me afterwards. It's like, oh my God, that's bad.
Okay, what does this do to you as a drummer? What does this experience, how does it affect you? How does it make you a better musician?
Well, I think that's part of the confidence thing and the consistency. You got to be consistent,
right.
And it just leads like you really got to be on the case. Like there's no room for your mind. Although the more you do a show, the more your mind wanders. And so you got to eat, and then you have to really fight that, because you could just drift off, and it's like you get to the end of the first act and you go, how did I get to? I don't remember playing this, at all. So
does it enhance your ability to improvise outside of that?
No.
Or does it limit it greatly?
Yeah, no. The first time after all this theater stuff, or, I would be in between shows and I go do a normal gig and try and play a blues shuffle, and I go, I can't play anymore. Like, so you get used to doing a show, that's all you can do. And if you're not doing something else, like, to counterbalance that, then you can get in trouble. And there's guys that live in the theater for years, doing the same show for years and years, and they're afraid to step out of it because the money's good, but they end up not being able to play anymore because that's all they can just do this one thing, So
what made you decide, okay, after 10 years I got to get out? I mean, 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And the number of shows you did was ridiculous, but what made you think, it's time to do something else?
Yeah, I think it was just I'm like that. That I just thought, okay, I've done this now, and I wasn't enjoying, like, the last couple of shows I did. I didn't enjoy that much, and I just thought I got to do something else. But I don't know what I did after that.
Are you doing session work at this time? Are you teaching at this time?
Yeah, teaching, and maybe that's around the time I started writing my first book too. I think I got really into that, and I was just freelancing and stuff, and I don't know. I was into some good stuff. There was a fusion band I was playing with called The Code, and we were recording, and we played like the Montreal Drum Fest and did some gigs and stuff. But I was doing weddings too, playing weddings, and just doing various gigs around town. I pretty well do any gig, that happened, but I was doing enough good things that it counterbalanced anything. But then I reached a point where I didn't want to. When I hit 60, I stopped doing weddings, and I thought, this is crazy. I don't want to do anything that I don't like anymore. Everything I do musically has got to be something that I like, and that's
okay,
where
so what
I'm
do you think that? What is that? Is that just age and thinking life is too short? I don't want to be doing shitty things,
Yeah.
Or was it something else?
No, that's it. Yeah, I think it's age and an accumulation of dread of playing Dancing Queen over the years. Like I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. So, I just wanted to play music that I liked and not do anything that made me uncomfortable, work for anybody that was a drag, that kind of thing. Because, I did my share of work for leaders that were not cool, So, but you put up with it, but I don't put up with it anymore.
Okay, so one of the things that you did, I don't know if it's this time, was become a leader of a band.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. Was it you just didn't like working for other people? It's time for you to do what you wanted to do, or?
I kind of fell into that because the Code, the fusion band I was playing with, our bass player, Pat Kilbride, he went on the road doing some big show and in the States, Music of the Night or something, touring, and so the band we tried to keep it going, but I think we sort of shut it down. But I wasn't ready to shut it down, so I just made a band that was an offshoot of that, I think I called it the cod, just so I could hear them say. And tonight at the Rex, we have Paul DeLong's Cod. I just love the way that sounded. But and then that became the Bucket of Fish Orchestra, Bucket of Fish, and we had a sax player at the time. We were playing a lot of Herbie Hancock, Michael Brecker, that kind of stuff. But then, for some reason, and we were playing the odd Mahavishnu tune. But then I decided to do this complete Mahavishnu fusion thing, no more sax, and just do like a real, because I love that music more than any music,
right.
And it meant something to me to try and play it and find people that were of a like mind to try and play it with me.
And are you replicating that music note for note, or are you doing...
No, because that was highly improvised music. So,
right, okay.
But we are playing the songs as written with our own improvisations and stuff. But it sounds pretty... And then, of course, during COVID, a clear set of Clear Fives duplicate of Billy Cobham's drums showed up on Kijiji, and I fought it, but I finally had to buy them. So now I have the sound, too, of what those records sounded like with those drums, because it's a certain sound, so I have that going, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What I find interesting is I know that Mahavishnu Orchestra gig at Maple Leaf Gardens was a big deal.
Yeah.
I think, was that with Frank Zappa and
yeah.
Paul Butterfield? Was that?
No, Paul Butterfield, but Frank Zappa.
Okay. Who was the opening act? Somebody.
It might have been the Good Brothers. I think.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I know that had a big deal.
Yeah.
The first band that you toured, the Japanese band, they came over because of Lighthouse,
right.
And now you play in Lighthouse.
Yeah.
It's interesting how your life has this secular, I don't know. It's interesting how things come around.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's really bizarre, like playing with Lighthouse, because I remember opening with that band, the Japanese group, opening at the band shell, the CNE, opening for Lighthouse. And I remember Paul Hoffert standing at the side watching me, and I was intimidated, of course. But now I'm in Lighthouse, and Paul, there he is, and he seems to like what I do, and it's very, and I was a huge Skip Prokop fan, and it's just really cool to end up playing in that band, just because of what it meant to me back when I was 17. I mean, I think in that thing on my website, I talk about Skip Prokop giving me a drum lesson on the tire of the equipment truck, when I was 17. I'll never forget that. It was amazing, So it's very cool.
Tell me about the relationship you have with other drummers, because obviously, just by reading the influences page on your website, it's obviously not a competition that you and you've taken so many different lessons from so many different musicians, even one-offs, one day or whatever.
Yes.
And I presume that is all to do with you wanting to be a better drummer, or you wanting to learn something else. Mm-hmm. But tell me about that relationship you have with other drummers.
Yeah, I mean, I pick up stuff from anybody or everybody, and my early influences are still in my playing now. Carmine Appice, like the way he grabs cymbals, I still do some stuff where I grab the cymbal, it's like
is it there. Just a matter of seeing something, liking what you hear, and go, I want to know how to do that.
Yeah, and when I started in the early 90s, I was falling in love with Latin music, and I wanted to get into that deeper. So I was fortunate enough to be able to have a lesson with Alex Acuna, and I really got into seeking out knowledge. There was so much, well, not as much knowledge now, but there was a lot of knowledge out there to be had, and I've always, if there's something that somebody's doing that I don't even approach that, like it's not in my wheelhouse at all, I want to know, I want to get a bit of that into me, right? So there's always that, and it's not a competitive thing. Even among my peers, like drummers I know, that are just fantastic. I want to pick their brains and steal stuff from them, and the drum community, like I've met a lot of my heroes, and they're all like really great people and really open. There's only a couple that were not so nice, but mostly like Terry Bozzio, nicest guy in the world. We sat and talked at the Montreal Drum Fest one time, and and had a great old time. Gary Husband, one of my major heroes, he's a good friend. We talk, and Steve Smith.
What a nice man he is.
Yeah, he's incredible. And we got a monsoon going out here.
Dude.
Holy. Yeah, and always, it's a drumming community is cool, and sharing information, is so cool.
You talked about at a certain point you decided that you didn't want to do gigs you don't want to do.
Right.
Are there gigs you want to do that you hope to accomplish in the next little while?
Well, I want to play with Peter Gabriel, but I don't think that's going to happen too soon. But no, I've kind of given up on on the at this point on the big gig in the sky. But
I wonder, like, are there goals you have at this point?
I don't. I think I just to keep doing what I'm doing and improving, and I hope some. There's a few things like challenging things that come along, maybe that I'm not expecting to come along, that will all of a sudden go, oh, this is great. I love doing this. Like this guy David Barrett, who I never knew. He approached me a few years back, and we've recorded an album. We recorded some videos in my basement recently, and it's turned into a really neat little scene for me with him. That I never knew that was gonna. I mean, there's always something around the corner.
Right.
It seems so. I'm always open to those things, but I don't have any aspirations to the big gig the way I used to. I mean, there was a time in my 40s where I would go to the NAMM show every year and hand out cassette tapes and try and get the big gig, right? Well, I don't think about that. I mean, I'm 71 years old. I'm not going to be doing that, But
it's like, I know that we can see you at the Rex, but you're still playing theater gigs. You're playing not theater.
Oh, you mean like playing
venue?
Oh,
theater
yeah.
venue,
No,
right?
I'm the tribute king. So I play in a Chicago tribute called Brass Transit, and we tour all over the U.S. Playing really nice theaters and casinos and stuff in the U.S. and it's quite a successful thing, and so yeah, continue to do that as much as I can until I can't take the travel anymore. Getting close, but not quite. Maybe when I'm 75, I won't do it. I don't know, but the travel is tough. I gotta say, but I still love doing the gigs, and I do the Steely Dan Pretzel Logic, so we do that, and I love playing that music. And my band, Lighthouse, David Barrett. Is there anything else?
Classics side.
Oh, Jeans and Classics, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I love doing that. Yeah, we were just in Pennsylvania doing a police sting show with the symphony there, and that was fantastic. I loved it. So I like doing those a lot. So that's probably enough stuff, and involving travel and stuff too. So, yeah, no, it's fine. If I can just keep on keeping on, I'm good. Well,
it's a pretty impressive career. It's amazing the things you've gotten to do.
Yeah.
The people you played with.
Yeah, no, it's for an underachiever, I've done okay, No, really, I've done okay in spite of myself, because I was never one to promote myself, network, do any of that stuff. It was like, well, you don't want to hear me play,
But the fact that you would listen to things and transcribe drum parts and continue to do that, and probably have been doing this most of your life.
Yeah.
The fact that you teach and you also still get lessons. I mean, this has been a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah, and I'm still the same kid. Like, in my mind, I'm still 18, and I'm still nuts about the drums, and I'm still nuts about the smell of the inside of a Gretsch drum, and polishing my drums, and just sitting and looking at them sometimes at a club or I love everything about drums as much as I ever did. Like, I just love it, and it's that's a wonderful thing to feel that passionate about
For
something.
Sure.
My whole life,
So there's never a point where you might have gotten away from that.
Not a chance. When Kim, we were first we did the EP, and we were with Anthem Records, and then Anthem dropped Kim, and there was no gigs and nothing, no band, no gigs. And Kim said, until I get a new deal, we're done. So good luck. So, and I had a 1-year-old baby at the time, and I had no work. And my mother-in-law, thank God, she got me a job as a courier, driving a little courier truck around Mississauga and Brampton, and I didn't know Mississauga or Brampton at all, and there was no GPSs then. It was the hell time of my life, the worst month of my life. I got an eye infection just from squinting at the maps all the time. So like that month taught me that playing music, it's a sacred thing. It's a wonderful thing, and it's meaningful thing, as opposed to, I thought about working as a courier and working only for a month, but I saw that my dad used to say, people who live lives of quiet desperation, you have nothing meaningful, and you go and do your job, and you come home and have a beer and sit in front of the TV, and that's your life. It's like, I'm not saying all that's the low end of the totem pole, because obviously people who are doctors and lawyers who have great lives and mansions in Rosedale, they do just fine. But I'm just saying, a lot of people do live those lives where they don't have anything really meaningful, and they spend their whole life doing, like my dad was a really good artist, but he never pursued that. So he spent his life selling plastics. He worked for Monsanto and BASF, and he spent his life doing something that he didn't want to do, and he painted for his own amusement on the side, but it's different. Now, having said that, it's been a hard life too, and it's been times when things were lean, and I've been sick and I had to play anyway. I played a gig with pneumonia. I remember a fusion gig. It was 91 or 92. The show must go on, and I played Lion King with a broken wrist. And I didn't know I broke it yet, and because I had fallen down my basement stairs right before a Sunday matinee, and I thought, well, that hurts, and I went to the show and I did the whole show, and then at the end my wrist had seized up, so I went to the hospital, and he said, you broke your wrist. And so I actually played with a broken wrist. So there's that kind of shit where the show must go on, and so it's tough, but I would not trade it. I wouldn't, if I had to do over again, I would still do it, for sure.
Wow, thank you so much for doing this. It's a pleasure getting to know you.
Likewise. Thank you. I hope I didn't meander too much.
No. My final question.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what that relationship between you and your drum set is?
Well, I would say it is a bit of a love-hate relationship, because it's funny being a musician, that you wake up each day and you think, will I play anything good today? Am I good? Will I be good? You're only as good as your last gig. So you're constantly questioning yourself, and what do I have to offer? Am I saying anything here? Is there anything deep, or is this shallow crap? Or so there's that all the time. But when you're playing, like if I'm playing and I'm creating and playing with my band, and the band is smoking and I feel good and the flow is happening and stuff, there's no better feeling than that. It's incredible, and so I live for those moments when it's good and you go, yeah, this is why I'm alive, this is why I'm this is good, and as opposed to the times when you're going, I sound like crap, this is awful, like what am I doing? So every musician goes through that too, like those moments of self-doubt and stuff. But yeah, so it is a love-hate relationship. I love the drums a lot when they love me, and I hate them when they're not responding the way I want them to, if that makes any sense.
Wow, I mean, just to have that passion all your life is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's good, but I'm deaf, and I have back trouble, and I really, in the big scheme of things, I don't have that much money. I'm okay, but I have a house that's worth something, but and I have 7 sets of drums that I love, but yeah, no, it's weird. It's not everybody is not cut out for this. Like, I remember a guy saying to me, a friend of my wife's husband, he said, I was had writing something in my date book at the time, and he said, you know, like, what happens like 3 months from now? And I said, there's nothing there. He says, how do you live like that? I said, no, there'll be something there. Don't worry, it'll come in. But he could not fathom living where you don't know 3 or 6 months ahead. Yeah. You know, because most people, they have their job and it goes on. But I have always lived with that. You know, there's June of 2025. You know, there's a couple of gigs, but I know it'll be pretty full by the time I arrive there. And you just have to trust that it's going to be okay. You know.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly done well.
Done okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank you. My pleasure.